we talk about Arizona, the land of hot desert and one of the gateways to the Grand Canyon. It also has some grand stories to tell, from ghosts to Old West legends to a rather ornery camel. I'll be taking you through some of the state's most paranormal and supernatural tales. The first of those stories is about a hospital that's closed down, and it comes from a nurse. Now, nurse stories can be very reliable, given the nature of their work and where, in their workplace, death lurks around every corner. In Mesa, a hospital which lost part of its facility funding resulted in part of the hospital closing down and being abandoned. Now, night shifts can be terrifying enough, but in a hospital, turn that scary factor up to 11. The lights flicker on and off, EKG monitors buzz and beep, and patients call during the night. But the part of the hospital that's closed down hasn't seen patients in years. As the story was told to me, on an empty second floor, call lights would go off, shouting and laughter can be heard, and on a particularly slow day, a physical therapist needed to head upstairs to retrieve supplies and got the fright of her career. Upon asking a coworker to accompany her, because she was too scared to go up to the second floor herself, the two venture into the second floor. After leaving the elevator, they proceed to hear a conversation. Now remember that this floor is empty. There are no patients up here, no one to hold a conversation. They get their supplies and head back down, no worse for wear. Her nurse co-worker, the one who told me this story, said that she went back to her desk, which faces the wall, to document her cases. Suddenly, she felt a hard tap on her shoulder, like someone trying to gain her attention. When she ignored it, as her back is to the wall, that sharp tap became a hand that ran from the nape of her neck to the back of her head. Now, like any normal person, she jumps up, exclaims loudly with an expletive that I can't say here, and grabs the previous physical therapist, and they both take the same elevator, returning to the second floor, and the nurse tells this unseen entity to return to their room and not come back downstairs. From then on, she still hears voices, sometimes full-blown conversations, but hasn't been touched since. From a haunted hospital to a more famous landmark in Arizona, I now take you to Tombstone, the town too tough to die. Now, just about everything in Tombstone is haunted, from the streets to the old buildings, but it is an Old West town. So, what we'll be focusing on is the Birdcage Theater. Everything is in its original state, preserved as it was when it was built. This thing survived a fire in the early 1800s. Its doors were closed in 1889, and it left everything in place. When it reopened in 1934, it was a perfect window into Tombstone's past. Several people have reported ghostly activity here, due largely to its preservation. And as violent a place as Tombstone was, and the Birdcage Theater especially, it's not uncommon to see spirits of the past, as up to 26 people were killed inside the theater alone. The Birdcage, in fact, is the most haunted building of a town that boasts that it's the most haunted in all of Arizona. Dark figures roam the dusty streets and old saloons at night, shadows of those who came before. One such figure is that of a stage manager who was killed when a sandbag dropped on top of him. His spirit walks along the stage to this day, possibly making sure the stage is safe and set for the next show. One of the most famous stories is that of Gold Dollar and Margarita, two ladies of the night. Gold Dollar grew jealous of Margarita, who was flirting with the latter's boyfriend. The story goes that after issuing a threat to cut her heart out, Gold Dollar made good on that promise, murdering Margarita in cold blood. Her angry spirit is said to roam the theater, and the smell of lilac perfume precedes her presence. And lastly, a woman in white, who some claim to be Margarita, is seen in the basement gambling hall when no one else is there at the time. Now, while we're on the subject of most haunted towns in Arizona, I'd like to bring you to Jerome. Jerome is another spook-filled town, with some arguing that this is the most haunted ghost town in all of Arizona, not Tombstone. The Grand Hotel was once the United Verde Hospital, which was built in 1926, further away from the town than the other buildings, which made it more durable. It was made of a stronger material to help it withstand earthquakes and fires, due to it being a hospital. Thanks to this, it avoided many of the fires that plagued the town since its inception, leaving it virtually untouched and with its original facade intact. By 1926, it was one of the most modern and well-equipped hospitals in Arizona. But by the 1950s, the mine had dried up, as did most of the town, which included the hospital. Now, over 9,000 people lost their lives in this hospital. And as the old Verde reopened as the Grand Hotel, many have heard and felt its past. From ghostly gurneys heard squeaking down the carpeted halls, to coughing and ghostly footsteps, this place will certainly cause restless nights. The most famous spirit is believed to be Claude Harvey, a well-liked maintenance worker found pinned under the elevator, crushed and broken. Mysterious scratch marks scored his body, but in the end his death was ruled an accident. Today the elevator frequently goes up and down to various floors without being called. There are footsteps heard inside when no one is there, and the lights flicker on and off despite several maintenance attempts to fix them. Any strange occurrences near the elevator are attributed to the ghost of Claude. From haunted towns to haunted roads, here we'll explore the Anthem, Arizona hitchhiker. Now, legends of phantom hitchhikers exist in every state, and Arizona is no different. Along a road north of Phoenix, a small stretch of desert road, close to Anthem is the place where our ghostly tale begins. This shadowy person holds a lantern out, waiting for a ride that will never come. Folks say that this is an unfortunate spirit that was struck and killed while trying to make it back to Phoenix, and his soul is eternally looking for that ride that will take him. Those who do stop to help witness him vanish before their eyes, while others claim his presence sends chills down their spine and they do not stop, only to see him vanish in their mirrors as they speed away. From haunted hospitals to haunted towns to haunted roads, this last story isn't even about a real ghost, but about the Red Ghost. Sightings began in 1883 of this terrifying creature, as two wives of ranchers of Greenlee County saw it outside their cabin windows. Only one lived to tell the tale, however, as when she was heard screaming for her companion, she rushed out in time to see a huge monster, a beast covered in red fur, trampling the other woman to death. Rumors circulated that this beast was not of this earth, ridden by a skeletal figure many claimed to be the devil himself. A few weeks later, when a man named Cyrus Hamblin caught a proper glimpse of the creature, it was discovered to be a camel, with a ghoulish rider on board. A long dead man straddled and tied to the animal's back, giving it a monstrous temper and keeping it in constant pain. A decade after its initial sighting, in 1893, a man named Muzu Hastings shot and killed the elusive camel, discovering that, although the corpse upon his back had finally fallen off, the unfortunate man could not have tied himself to the camel. no one can quite figure out why the corpse was attached to this camel. Theories persist that it was a form of torture for both man and beast, but still, no one knows for sure. Despite the topic of death surrounding these forlorn figures, fascination has always surpassed my fear of the paranormal, the ghostly, and the tragic events surrounding the unknown nature of those whose spirits seemingly refuse to rest in peace. Though there are many more ghost stories to explore in the Grand Canyon state, I'll move on to other stories for now, so as not to take away from the mystery or the intrigue of these elusive phantoms of the past. From feisty phantoms, we move on to the Wild West's other legends. From legendary people to tall tales and more events than a history book could fill in one volume. Even today, the deserts and the cities of Arizona teem with the stories of both the recent and ancient events and the people who witnessed them. One such figure is Geronimo, the legendary leader of the Apache, and one of the most recognized Native Americans in history. Following the murder of his family by Mexican soldiers, legend claims that a voice spoke to him, saying he could not be killed by weapons, and guns could never harm him, demonstrated years later by an astonishing number of bullet wounds on his body. Another tale tells of an amazing feat, one where apparently the sound of his chanting held back the sunrise long enough for his brethren to reach the safety of the mountains with enemy soldiers on their trail. One of his followers said that Geronimo sang, and that held back the sun for another few hours. From skills of clairvoyance, he was said to have predicted oncoming enemy soldiers that planned an ambush, and the Apache's base camp had been taken, though he was hundreds of miles away at the time. To legends of his ability to leave no footprint and vanish into the landscape, his legendary status is well known. In 1886, after his final rebellion against U.S. and Mexican soldiers, in which he and 40 other Apaches under his protection evaded capture, not even 4,000 soldiers could lay a finger on any of the 40. He surrendered, given his age and infamy by then, and in his later years became a sort of celebrity, traveling with Wild West shows and selling pictures of himself. He passed away from pneumonia, not a weapon or a bullet killing him, in 1909. Now, who could talk about the Grand Canyon state without talking about the legends of the Grand Canyon? This one particular story comes out of the Phoenix Gazette from 1909. It published a story about an explorer, G.E. Kincaid, who discovered a lost archaeological wonder while going down the Colorado River. Now, Kincaid and a team of Smithsonian experts discovered a large cavern system, which contained chambers of mummies, grains, passageways leading off to other rooms, and a stone idol, of which Kincaid said resembled Buddha, though he definitely could not say which deity it was. Upon discovery of yet another, more massive room leading off to other chambers, they found seed storage, a long room assumed to be a dining hall, and a non-explored chamber they claimed smelled of dead things and had a snaky, musky odor. Despite this discovery, the Gazette never published a follow-up, and any modern attempt to find out more is met with hushed tones and dead ends. Some speculate it's a Washington cover-up, but why? Kincaid only theorized it was a site of early Native Americans, an interesting thought when the Hopi tribes believed that mankind emerged to this world from another, one underground. More interesting still are the Hopi legends that know that the sacred site is known as Sipapu, itself located near the convergence of the Colorado and Little Colorado rivers. From the canyons to the mountains, Arizona sure has a heck of a lot of legends. The Superstition Mountains supposedly contain a subterranean labyrinth, possibly part of a larger network, and it's said to be hidden underneath the mountains. From the Spanish explorers to modern day accounts, unexplained homicidal events have occurred far too often to be average. The Spanish recount incidents in which adventurers would find their colleagues beheaded, a condition many prospectors years later would be discovered in as well. Now, greed is often determined to be the cause of this, but some say it's a curse on the land itself. From the Superstition Mountains, we move on to other rocks and vortexes of Sedona, Arizona. The earth has her secrets, many and widespread, but none can deny that she's got an energy all her own. Lines of energy, ley lines in fact, crisscross this entire planet, converging on places such as Sedona and Fort Walton Beach and so many others, causing places of power such as Stonehenge and the Sedona vortexes. In Ireland, they're called the fairy paths. In China, the dragon lines. The native Australians have the song lines, or the dreaming tracks. And the Incas have spirit lines. But one thing is in common. It's all connected, and it's all an energy that can be felt on a deeply spiritual level. Whether naturally electrical, magnetic, or otherwise, the energy can be felt in a number of ways, mostly through the feeling of being recharged or having stress lifted off of you. Now, Sedona is no different, where the air practically crackles with a transformational allure. If you're not inclined to believe, that's okay. The raw beauty of this place will replenish your sense of wonder regardless of what you believe. Now, from the mysterious vortexes of Sedona, we move back to Phoenix. Any mysterious podcast or anything speaking about the mysteries of Arizona could not be complete without talking about the Phoenix Lights, the UFOs of March 13th, 1997. There were hundreds of witnesses, if not thousands, and they saw these lights, and many described them as a V-shaped object on which these lights were fixated to, which blocked out starlight beyond them. One witness claimed the space between the V shape, where one would find the horizontal bar of an A, gave the stars a wavy appearance. Though pilots and airmen of the military rank saw these lights, they could not be seen on radar, adding to the mystery. Even more mysterious is the timeline. The same lights were spotted in Tucson, Phoenix, and Oracle, 30 miles northeast of Tucson, within the span of 15 minutes, which is, as you probably know, impossible. Most witnesses can collaborate there were 7 lights, but some suggest there were as many as 10, and that they were attached to a larger vessel, though some claim they moved in tandem, but were separate lights. Regardless of where they came from or what they were, Arizona has a very active sky, and most of that which is there cannot be identified. Now we'll head back on the road again to Route 66. In particular, we'll be on the 6th branch of Old Historic Route 66, Route 666. This ran through 4 states, from Utah to New Mexico. It was 605 miles long at its longest, and it can also claim to be one of the most haunted highways in the country. One story tells of a mad trucker, the specter of a truck flying down the road at 130 miles per hour, sparks coming off its wheels and flames shooting up from the smokestacks. Along this road is the classic lady in white, a hitchhiker in the middle of the desert road in a white dress. Those who try to give her a ride witness her vanish before their very eyes. Also here, skinwalkers appear more often and shapeshift into animals in apparent attempts to run drivers off the road. Disappearances are common too, as well as reappearances. One case involved
the same person disappearing at one end and reappearing at another end with no recollection of how they got there. Even with the official redesignation of Route 666 to Route 491, with Arizona's stretch becoming an extension of U.S. Highway 191 in 1992, the wild and weird stories persist. We can all agree that the places and people make a state great, but some legends endure for far longer than a tall tale. Between the things we see and what we know, there are always doorways to the most fascinating places and tales of people we could only imagine in our wildest dreams. I hope I've conveyed their stories truly, with utmost care and respect to their wild ways, out there in what still remains the Wild West.
In this next session, I'd like to talk about the wonderfully diverse state that Arizona is, its ecosystem tied closely to its desert. The animals here are equally unique, given some of their harsh environments. What I hope to bring to light here are the legendary ones, the creatures that inspire fear and awe. Native American legends and classic creatures classified in the I don't know what I saw sections of news articles inhabit this wide, oftentimes dry land. First up, Native American legends tell of monstrous beings called skinwalkers, being neither man nor beast, but something in between. They are shapeshifters, becoming animals or even people you may know, all in an attempt to cause harm or kill whoever they deem necessary. Often described in a variety of ways, these creatures were, according to legend, once human. They gave up their humanity for the supernatural powers they now possess. Though there are many stories about the Skinwalker, many tribal people refuse to talk about them for fear even speaking their name will draw their attention. We won't go further about skinwalkers out of fear and respect for the culture that I know very little about. Instead, we'll move on to the Mogollon Monster, Arizona's Bigfoot. This 7-foot tall ape like creature is bipedal, similar to Bigfoot accounts worldwide, and stalks the dense forest landscape of the Mogollon Rim, a 200-mile long stretch of mountains cutting across the northern half of Arizona. It was first sighted in 1903 when a man named I.W. Stevens told the Arizona Republic newspaper he saw a humanoid creature with long white hair near the Grand Canyon. Sightings have come mainly from the Mogollon Rim, from rather prominent witnesses too. Cryptozoologist Don Davis spotted the creature in the mid-1940s during a camping trip near Payson, Arizona. Despite numerous witnesses, no one can explain what they see in these woods. To evade capture or being seen, it is said to mimic wildlife noises to blend in with its surroundings. From the cryptic Arizona Bigfoot, we move on to a more common yet uncommon sight, the sacred white buffalo. Now, according to Native American beliefs, the appearance of a white buffalo is a sign of abundance and rebirth. In 1997, such an occurrence happened in northern Arizona, 20 miles north of Flagstaff, in which a white buffalo was born named Miracle Moon. According to legend, Saison Wee, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, the white buffalo calf woman appeared to the Lakota Sioux people during a time of great strife and bestowed upon them a peace pipe, one of the most sacred symbols to the Lakota people, and taught them the 7 sacred rituals to live a harmonious life. She left them in the form of a white buffalo calf, the form in which it is said she will return in. When Miracle Moon reached maturity, she too was able to give birth to 4 white calves, up through 2005, Rainbow Spirit and Mandela Peace Pilgrim among them. Then, in 2002 and in 2004, the two of them gave birth to white calves themselves. 7 sacred white buffalo spanning 3 generations, a 1 in 10 million miracle 7 times over. Some would claim that there are 7 sacred rituals and 7 white buffalo, miracles in and of themselves. Last but certainly not least, we'll cover a topic I find most fascinating: the hidden people. All over the world, the others have existed in some form or another, and Arizona is no different. Tribes in the Numic language group, such as the Paiute of northern Arizona, tell of the Ninimbe, cannibalistic creatures with tails and large heads, which lurk around wells, bushes, and rocky places in Arizona. The Hopi and Zuni have depictions of the Kokopelli, also a tailed creature, with a hooked nose and hunched back, which can be seen on Hohokam pottery dating at least 1,000 years ago. Pima tribes give us the stories of vicious Vipinim, small entities who use mimicry to lure victims into water bodies to drown them. These could be tales of superstitious people, but in 2004, archaeologists discovered evidence of a small, 3 to 4 foot hominid species that shared the earth with early humans as early as 18,000 years ago, with scholars believing there to be a connection between the mythic and this ancient species. Creatures, both fantastical and terrifying, show us that there is much more to this world than we could have ever hoped to grasp. The world is filled with these wonderful and often dangerous beings, from creatures who try to survive to beings who live parallel to us, seemingly in another world. Tales persist of strange beasts, legends of healers, and tales of horror that bring us back to the old times, bonfires and superstitions. From the beasts in the dark to the spirits of those who passed to legendary figures, we visited all around Arizona, and I'll be glad to revisit it someday with more tales of the supernatural to come.